He sings as he works, his voice warm and soft as the late afternoon sun. The air's sweet with the tang of recently cut sugar cane. There's a practiced, almost soothing precision to the way he works. He looks up and nods hello. "Making molasses," he says to your unasked question. "I sell the blackstripe in town. Farmers use it for feed. Bitter as hell. Got some set aside?" He comes back with a murky flask, waving off any offer of payment. "I ain't charging. Folks around here need what they can get. Makes a mean loaf of bread." He nods at the barrels. "I'm about done filtering. Got to boil it next. Lend a hand?" You help him haul the barrels over to the metal boiler. You pour in the juice and set the fire. It's hot work. He fetches water and dark bread, and you share the small meal and a smile. It's good to find another who takes joy in honest labor.
"We need a sixth,"
she told you, beckoning from the steps of a great dark mansion. And just like that, you found yourself sitting with strangers around a velvet-draped table. Her voice is reedy and high, modulated by the tight collar of her Victorian dress.
"Join hands, everyone."
Your host keeps her eyes closed as she beseeches the spirits of the dead. But everyone else around the table lets one lingering, awkward glance bounce around between them. You sense they're just about done humoring her when it happens. A deep, nasty thump beneath the table. The whole table starts to shake, threatening to lift right off the ground. And then the staid candle flames start flickering like mad, casting ghastly shadows on the walls. And then a viciously cold wind cuts through the parlor like sharpened ice. The damned candles are dancing in midair around you now, singeing a hair here and there off the coiffed heads of these well-heeled guests. You notice your host across the table has her eyes open wider than they should go, a rivulet of blood dripping from her nose. When you come to your senses, sunrise has begun to creep in. The parlor is empty but for you and the woman in the old-fashioned dress, who slumped dejectedly over the table.
"He didn't show up. All that sound and fury, and no sign of his spirit."
His smile lights up the room, or rather the cab of the locomotive. Folks gather round as he holds the pull cord. He's a showman through and through. "You'll want to cover your ears now for this next part." Sure doesn't help much. The engineer pulls that chain and the whistle blasts inside your skull. He just smiles through it all. Man must be half deaf. A round of applause erupts from the small crowd. He passes out bubble gum to the shell-shocked kids, half of them in awe, half in tears. "Remember now who gets you there on the advertised. Casey Jones." Everyone's all talk as they head back to their seats. That engineer sure is handsome. Gosh, and that whistle sounded just like a whippoorwill, didn't it? Ain't this the way to travel? Faded shotgun houses sit in rows under the tall shadows of smokestacks. A worker in full uniform hollers from a porch. "Hey, traveler! Join me inside. Got some literature here." As you shut the door, the man glances out the window and draws the shades. "Landlord toss you out? Ha, don't mind me, it's none of my business." He pries up a floorboard with a crowbar. You glance over the man's shoulder to see inside the compartment canned goods, a pile of leaflets, the wood stock of a rifle. He replaces the board and stands. He hands you a can of whole potatoes, then a leaflet which reads, "No evictions, no fascists, no hunger." "Headed back to the shop, but we'll have a Bible meet soon." Nothing wrong with that. Careful in those boxcars, traveler, and take care of your neighbor." The blistering sun has scared even birds into the shade. But a middle-aged woman and a young couple are still collecting scraps of cotton that the machinery missed. With a ragged voice, the older woman calls to you. "You got any water?" The three of them rush over to you, suddenly reanimated. They pass around your canteen. When you get it back, it's empty. The woman squeezes your hand and sighs with relief. "Sweetest thing I ever tasted," she tells you. The shanty sits on the shore like a lie on a con man's tongue, crowded by thick-spined trees. There's an old man on its porch, and a child, and what looks like 1,000 alligators knotted across the property. My love's being stubborn. Washed in the half-light, the voice's owner is a certain strange shade of handsome. He leans a shoulder against a tree, smiles at you. "You gotta help me talk some sense into her. All I need is 5 minutes. She won't let me through." That look on his face, it could strike down God from their hallowed halls. He exhales, a thin cut of noise, before he dips his chin. "Oh, maybe you're right. Maybe I should. Maybe I should tell her sorry like I should have done 10,000 years ago. Well, come on then." He crooks a finger at you, and then nimbly, he prowls up to the borders of the house, picking his way through the alligators. "Woman, come out of your house now." A voice ricochets through the air, wry and wreathed in warning. "Ain't nothing good'll come of that." At the reprimand, the man turns to you, a questioning look, cocked. You open your mouth, and what comes out isn't a word, but the note of a song you'd not been taught. At the noise, the gators twitch like you'd run barbed wire along their bellies. "Go home and leave the gators," says a voice from inside. "You ain't wanted here." "Well, you know that's not how it's done. When a man loves a woman, she stays with him forever. Now you come out now, 'fore my friend sings a bayou down to his death." The man and child do nothing. You keep singing. All three of you cut loose from personal choice. A woman emerges. Blunt black hair, hungry eyes, face full of warning. "This ain't your fight, stranger," she tells you gauzily, storm cloud eyes holding your own. Suddenly, your throat's your own again. "Leave." She sighs, and the alligators stir at the sound, the light catching in the crenellations of the spines. And for a second, looks like they're all frowning, not smiling as reptiles do, but scowling like a crash of aunts. Fine. Death comes without incident, for all that it arrives in a torrent of teeth and thrashing tails. Unlike lovers, the alligators bear no interest in causing pain. When they are done, they all turn to stare until you go. First tree in a mile, and it's a stout myrtle with bald branches. No relief from the sun out here. Leaves would help. Someone hadn't replaced them all with dusty glass bottles. You cool down in the shade. The breeze blows through the bottles, making a series of heavy, hollow sounds. You think about wind chimes and the smell of fresh pies on windowsills. The dense sound of many conversations cuts your nap short. There's no one around. Not until you look up at the bottles. They're filled with bright blue orbs, and words echo from them. None seem to notice your presence.
Can't get enough. Porcelain, chrome, the rusty ones. Gotta turn those sleek faucets. Ever find me in a hardware store, I'm gonna haunt it till the cows come home.
Laughter rumbles inside neighboring bottles. This bustling farm has a strange layout. A central farmhouse, stately in its age, surrounded by smaller outbuildings like apartments. A number of folks go about their chores around it, children running through the gardens. Two people approach when they see you. "Hello, stranger." A shorter one, androgynous, calls with a smile. The other, a tall man, looks on with suspicion.
We don't get many visitors out here.
Looking around, the people at the farm don't look like a family. Too many adults of all shapes and sizes. The taller man puts a protective hand on the shorter one's shoulder. "Can we help you?" It doesn't sound like he wants to. You say you're just a traveler looking for a place to sleep and have no desire to intrude on their lives. You ask what this place is.
A communal home,
The shorter person says.
you're welcome to stay if you bring no judgment. We're all friends.
They say.
Family, really. Wanted a place we could live without fear, together.
They gesture to the outbuildings.
Each couple or group has a private apartment, and we all share the farm.
You see 2 black men lift a child into the air. See a pair of women kiss as they pass each other.
Not everywhere would have us. Give us jobs, even. We live here to share the work of family. Chosen family.
As you approach the farmhouse, a flock of crows lands in the field ahead. A wave of anguish washes over you, and when the world snaps back into focus, a man stands amongst the crows.
Death has come to this place,
He says.
I am here for the deceased.
As he speaks, 2 crows fly out from the farmhouse towards him, each carrying a large rectangle of colorful cloth.
4 boys came out here to have some last peace. The 2 boys who lived there, lovers who lived as they died. Too young, with the world turned away from them. Finally taken by the illnesses they could not fight.
He takes a cloth from the birds, panels like tapestries, names stitched into them. He holds them up.
Their names, the stories of their lives told by those who loved them, to be added to the quilt of all the others. Thousands, to remember the tragedy, the terror, the grief. The entire generation we lost.
The man nods.
Only by knowing our history, our stories, and why they were allowed to happen, can we strive forward to a better tomorrow.
The woman finds you as you wander the streets.
Come with me, child,
She says, looking you up and down.
we're going to church.
You got too far to go to spend hours listening to sermons. You politely refuse and go on your way. A bald man in sunglasses stands beside the smoking wreck of a sleek-looking Ford. In the distance, a violet arc of lightning blurs the edges of your vision and illuminates the contents of the trunk. Empty rum bottles, scattered notebooks.
You think it's fixable?
He inquires, looking from you to the caved-in engine.
Shit. Won't get to those unusual ordnance enthusiasts in time. Supposed to write about them.
He gestures toward the lightning.
Take something. Can't bring it without a car.
Several tabs with garishly printed strawberries are strewn among empty bottles. A revolver lies beneath them. The barrel droops and melts into the desert night, the handle crumbling to dust a moment after. He shakes his head. "It's not real without a story," he says. "But neither are we." He gestures to a battered tarot deck beneath a rum-spattered notebook. "This is yours now." The cards feel warm in your hands. Clubs, spades, hearts flash in his eyes. And then wands, swords, cups. And then the hidden suits, clocks, keys, birds, bones. "We come back different," he says, and taps the stretched hollow of his wrist, where a pulse should be. You've enjoyed a break on the beach, staring off the edge of the world, but the sun is starting to go down and the breeze is getting stronger. As you're about to stand, a man plonks down near you. He sits a polite distance off, but looks at you expectantly. He smiles weakly. "I just got fired. First Spanish-American radio host in the state, and they fired me. They needed to make cuts, I get that, but I'm twice the..." He trails off. "I don't know what I'm going to tell my wife. I could try the docks, but there's already more men than jobs, and I could barely support the family on what they pay." He hangs his head. "And my boy, I can't bring myself to tell them. I don't know what to do." He calms as the sun drops below the horizon. An expanse of darkness is ahead of you. Turning back to the lights of the city reminds you that the world hasn't gone away. After a long silence, he speaks. "It's never going to get better, is it?" It takes you a moment to notice his sobbing over the noise of the waves. "I've got to tell them, haven't I? I'll go to the port in the morning and see if they'll take me." You can no longer make him out in the dark, but his hand touches your shoulder as he leaves. You walk along the tracks for an hour, toward the smell of the coal baking in the sun. The train is idling at the station, sputtering, exhausted. A child paces up and down the line of black carriages, clutching a bundle of rags to her chest. She cranes her neck, figuring the height of the cars. You scared her half to death. She stares, absolutely petrified as you approach. "It was an accident," she whispers. All you can see in the heap of blankets she carries in her arms is the infant's tiny leg, pale and blue. In the morning, migrants line the street in an obedient queue, heads down, stomachs grumbling. Every couple minutes, the line lurches forward like the yank of a chain. They're waiting to get into a warehouse. You can't tell why or what's inside. You don't have all day. As you leave, A woman in a ravaged blue petticoat glides past, wrapping her arms around one of the men exiting the warehouse. "I love you," she whispers. "I love you." He holds a package, brown paper with fresh stains the color of rust.
But it's power